I am super excited. We got Craig Davis in studio today. Craig, welcome back because you were up with us in the podcast not that long ago.
That's right. Thank you. Good to be back. Good to be back in studio too. Thanks for having me.
Craig flew in from California. He's got family up here, and we are about to launch into a series of conversations about the current state of the industry and some of the ramifications of how we got here, but mostly about how you sustain and survive in this market. We're going to cover some cool stuff.
I think so. I think so. And look, it's just, it's not good. It's not bad. It is what it is.
Yes.
And we just have to accept it, adapt to it. And now how do we go forward with it?
And this is going to be the theme of this ongoing dialogue. We're going to riff on these subjects, and you're going to be able to catch them wherever you watch your Knowledge Coop content delivered. So we're really excited. And Craig, I can't wait to get into some of these topics with you.
Yeah, me too. And I love these. I love these conversations, even though we might be talking about some challenging things, right? And you just have to ask that question. Is it a challenge or is it an opportunity? And it's a good way to frame this if you are hearing something that maybe just doesn't settle well.
So we will call this Embracing New Normal, and we are excited to dig into this with you. Well, here we are back in the studio. We're going to kick off this conversation we talked about in our little promo piece, and I'm with Craig Davis with Ascent Experience Coaching, and we are going to get into the state of the union, right? If we can summarize it in any simple way, it's the reality of the market we're in and what that implies. Where are we going to go with this, Craig?
Yeah, and so where I look at where our mortgage industry is at right now, and I really believe that we're in a new era of mortgage. And the new era of mortgage maybe isn't what everybody's thinking, right? We've got AI out there, we've got tech, we've got rates, wherever rates are at. We have different channels of business ebbing and flowing. There's all these things that are happening, but really what the new era of mortgage is, in my opinion, is margin compression.
And it's important that we get that out there at the very beginning because that's going to be central to a lot of things we talk about today and moving forward. And I want to reiterate, you and I have both been at conferences recently where somebody stood up on stage and talked about good news is coming, better rates are on the horizon, rah, rah. And the simple truth of that is there's no basis in the economy and the indicators that we watch that that's really true. And the second thing about that we're going to talk about in this episode is why it's dangerous to hang out in that space. Right?
Yeah, and I also want to emphasize this, and this might sting a little bit. Even when rates do come down, I do not believe that's going to be the parachute that everybody's hoping for.
Because of
margin compression.
Yes.
And the results of that. And when I say margin compression, a way to translate that too is less revenue per loan, simply put.
Correct.
So,
and if you want to summarize, if you just are done already and you're depressed because you're discouraged that rates aren't getting better tomorrow, we can summarize what we have to say by saying, if you can learn to adapt to this as a new normal, and we're going to talk about tools and tricks and things you can do to do that, but until and unless we accept that this is new normal, until it's not, you're going to struggle. If you're waiting for tomorrow for that better rate sheet and haven't accepted that this is the market you're in, you're going to struggle.
Yeah, and it's really critical too, because I think there's three sort of layers to this, right? You've got company owners, CEOs, C-suite impacts. You've got branch managers, and then you have originators. And this sort of hits every one of those groups differently. And so I think it's important to understand, what does that mean? For example, rates will come down, let's say. At some point, rates will come down and refi activity will begin to spur. Originators will benefit, but not to the degree that I think everybody is hoping for. Not to the refi boom, so to speak, that everyone's hoping for.
Because we have complicating factors in the economy that aren't simply driven by higher interest rates, right?
Exactly. And the complication of what is happening in the industry, again, going back to some of these other elements like we were talking about, AI, tech, marketing, all these other elements driving that margin compression. Well, those who are doing what's necessary to create scale, to eliminate waste, to operate at a lower cost to produce, who are navigating in this environment, and those originators, along with the branch managers and company owners, they are going to get the lion's share of that business.
Craig, I think I talked with you about this previously. We had Bill Dallas on a podcast, and he talked about, unless and until this industry understands that we have to operate in efficient ways. We have to develop operational efficiencies in order to survive, because margin compression is real, it's here to stay, and we have to get better at controlling costs. Let's talk a little bit about how that is the antidote to margin compression, or at least an antidote.
Yeah, exactly. So, again, company owners, CEOs, C-suite, branch managers, originators. So let's think about it wherever you fall into this bucket. Well, first of all, we have to eliminate waste. Now, it's very easy to say, especially, and I've run P&Ls for years and years and years, and I know that you have as well. It's easy to have that low-hanging fruit, okay, I got to cut costs. And unfortunately, that comes at the detriment of staffing, you have marketing costs, you have all these obvious sort of like, okay, I have to reduce that cost. Well, that's been done. Now what? And we have to look inside the P&L, for example. And I always say there's an art and a science to the P&L. The science are the numbers right in front of us. Okay, I cut that cost. That's obvious. The art is being able to see through the numbers, and that's not always obvious.
Really important what you just said that I want to make sure everybody hears. We have to cut cost, and the low-hanging fruit part of that has already been done. We've been in this market for at least 18 months now.
Correct.
It's not new, and people have already gone down the road of trimming everywhere they can practically trim and still have a functional, operational platform.
Exactly, exactly. And I think that's the hard acceptance part of this. And I work with a lot of company owners, CEOs, branch managers, especially, and there has to be an acceptance to, okay, now where do I go eliminate waste? And there's things that we can look at, right? Look at your layering of bonus plans, layering of basis points. Sometimes it's a dollar conversation, sometimes it's a basis point conversation, right? So we have to go inside, we have to look inside the P&L and see where those basis points are doubling up. We have to remove leakage, right? It could be appraisal leakage, work number costs. We have to track credit to funding. Credit is expensive now. Credit reports are expensive. We know that. We have to track that. We have to track that by originator and by branch. We have to look at concession activity. And in fact, I would almost say this is probably going to be one of the biggest killers, especially with those mortgage companies that might have a lot of margin in their sheet to cover the cost of the organization, forcing originators to have to concede to compete. And we have to eliminate or reduce the concession activity because that is eroding revenue. That is eroding the basis points.
And this is systemic right now. As you know, the broker channel has really come back to life in the last couple of years, and some of the things they're doing very, very well, and they tend to boast a better rate sheet, right? So in the independent mortgage banker, who you got all that infrastructure costs and the layers of management between the street and the top of the house, you have to figure out a way to compete, and the pricing exception has been the way they've been forced to compete. Only with margin compression, it's getting harder and harder to do that. So what are they doing? They're skinning up their rate sheet so that there's a more competitive rate sheet, but now there's very few exceptions to the no pricing exception rule. But are you close enough? And if you're not, what are you going to do?
Yeah, and if certainly this ebbs and flows with every company and within all the different channels, and there's great companies out there. So yeah, there's a lot that has to be done within, I think, the organizations, because the more that we can compress I would say the waste within the organization, then the margin can compress with it and keep revenue aligned and keep costs in check. Now I would say this is an obvious statement, right? But not everybody's doing that. And that's where I go back to acceptance. And so again, company owner, company leader, now at a branch level, right? Because there's really three components to a margin. And I'm not going to get into the total complexities, but if you think about it, the company has a margin, the branch has a margin, and the originator has a margin. So it has to be equitable. There has to be shared fate in that. Everybody has to contribute, and that's very difficult. And dare I say, and I'm really sorry, originators, you might have to earn less per loan.
This is the hard conversation, and it's difficult to talk about it in a platform like this because we are the best friend of the mortgage industry. That's what the Knowledge Coop brags. You're a coach who serves not only the mortgage industry, but certainly a large part of your client base. But the days of being able to make a 5-figure income on 3 or 4 loans a month are probably going to go away if they haven't already. And it's directly as a result of margin. We used to say this all the time, and I know you remember this word. Volume solves everything.
Volume hides a lot.
It hides a lot, but in the past there was so much money floating around that if you just increase your volume, you close more loans, it didn't really, your inefficiencies weren't so noticeable because you still crushed it on volume, and everybody went to President's Club.
That's right. That's right.
Those days are gone.
And that really highlights also the inefficiency ultimately of the mortgage industry.
Yes.
And that
historical inefficiency.
Historical inefficiency. And honestly, that's really going to be the positive result of this.
Maturation.
Yeah. The mortgage industry has to get more efficient. Yeah. So if we're living in an environment that we have less revenue per loan, therefore we have to do more loans. And again, dare I say, everybody has to contribute. Originators have to contribute, branch managers have to contribute, and companies have to contribute. So I'm not saying this is on the originator. I'm saying this is a collective effort. Therefore, within that collective effort, there has to be efficiencies. There has to be tech adoption. There has to be process mandates that creates efficiency, because ultimately, this doesn't come down to just picking up dollars of waste. It might be about picking up pennies, picking up basis points, and that will collectively add up. And so that is so much of where I am helping organizations and branches move efficiency more towards the front of the file, for example. Mandate certain tech processes, mandate processes, create scalability, eliminate waste in the P&L, don't double up on bonuses. I'm going to start going on a tirade of this, but these are all little...
Improve throughput. Fewer
Improve
touches on every file that goes through the process.
improve pull-through, exactly. Watch your concession by loan officer and by branch, right? When I'm talking about track your credit to funding, because these are insights, right? And that's what I was saying, there's an art and a science to the P&L. The art being we have to look through the P&L. We need insights, we need data. You know, every branch manager, every regional out there, company owner, do you have an effective pro forma? And I would say that, do you have an effective pro forma to do stress testing on? And that's a lot of what I do with my clients, is let's layer decision-making on top of a pro forma. So we're stress testing this. So we can move small little levers, because we cannot solve this on the originator's backs.
Through volume.
Through volume or through margin. And here's what I mean by that. Because we can't solve this by what I would call bankruptcy by volume. The bankruptcy by volume paradox.
Let's get into that a little bit.
Yeah, so the bankruptcy by volume paradox. Companies, branches, well, especially if you're riding the line or maybe you're losing money. Well, I can't raise margin to grab more revenue because rates are already too high or not competitive. And I can't lower enough margin to create better rate to drive volume. There's a bankruptcy by volume paradox going on. So that's why we were talking about really this new era is margin compression, less revenue by loan. And the reason why this is a new era is because that, in my opinion, is not going away.
I got an analogy here that I think is relevant because it makes so much sense to me. And I know it's near impossible in the sport of baseball, but if you are hitting 250 in Major League Baseball, 1 out of every 4 times at bat, you're batting 250, you're writing a pretty fat contract, you're doing pretty darn good. If you can up that to where you're batting 333, where you're hitting it 1 every 3 times at bat, that's a significant change. You're now in all-star status perennially. Every year you do that, you're going to qualify as an all-star. However, not very many people get there because the changes that are required to go from a 250 hitter to a 330 hitter are so incremental and so subtle and have to be managed and trained and exercised through the process of your swing mechanics and your visibility, your vision of picking up the pitch out of the pitcher's hand, all of those things. And I think that is so applicable. What you were talking about, we're going to have to get into the minutia. We're going to be looking for basis points.
That's right. That's right. And I'll frame it, and I love that analogy, right? You think I could relate that to a golf swing, for example, right? You just move your thumb a little bit. Now it might screw up your swing for a couple rounds. It's going to hurt, but all of a sudden you're going to start hitting that. You're going to start driving through the ball better. So I'd say it like this, and this would be a coaching perspective, little shifts that create remarkable results. Apply that statement into your branch, into your company, into your process, into your P&L. What little shifts can you make? Because we know that sometimes when we look at these things, oh, I like do that, but really what pickup am I getting? Is it really worth it? Well, now it might be because we need the compound effect, right? So I think there's a lot of opportunity. We just have to be insightful about it. We have to accept it. It's okay. And the result on the other end of this might actually be that we're more efficient. So is this a challenge or an opportunity? And I think it could be an opportunity. So I don't look at this negatively. This is not a negative thing.
And I think that's a great way to wrap up this particular episode because I think we can focus on that. What we've talked about is some hard stuff, the possibility of loan officer comp reform, companies having to operate on skinnier margins, all of that. But if our focus is that this is an opportunity, not an indictment, not a sentence, not a there is great opportunity to see where this market can take us. There might be fewer competitors. That might be a really cool playing field to lead into. So we're going to continue this conversation. It's a challenge and opportunity, and you have to decide which way you're going to lean into that. I'm loving this conversation. It's a hard conversation, though.
is.
It's not easy. It's not fun necessarily.
It's not fun, but it is opportunistic.
And that's the key point, and that's how we tried to end our last conversation, is that there is an opportunity here, like there always has been. When they came out with loan officer comp reform years ago, we all thought the sky was falling. We all thought it was the end of the world. We're never going to be able to make a decent living in the mortgage business, and that was categorically untrue.
Absolutely.
So just the other day, I read Rob Chrisman's daily report. You probably get his report every day. Last week, I believe it was, he said, according to some research report, we know these numbers are a little bit squishy depending upon who did the research, but let's just use this as a benchmark. Somewhere north of $12,000 per file to originate a loan for independent mortgage bankers in the current economy.
Yeah.
That's a scary number.
Yeah, it is a scary number. And we know it hasn't always been 12. I mean, I remember a couple years ago, it was 9, and then it was 10. You know, it's crept up. But that in of itself is not efficient. And that's not right for the consumer, ultimately.
Who we serve.
Who we serve. Everything that we're doing has to be to the benefit of the consumer and to the benefit of the employees of the mortgage companies. And the results need to then be, you know, whether it's profitability or other, you know, elements, it has to be the benefit of the consumer. So we have to figure out how to reduce that cost per loan.
Before we move on, I really want to capture what you said because I think it's so profound and powerful. If we lose sight of the fact that what we do is for the sake of the person who chooses to work with us, the family, the individual, the consumer, the client, if we are not serving their interests first and foremost, and we're fighting the fight on my compensation or branch compensation or corporate compensation, and we fail to serve that consumer, we're going to lose.
Yeah.
We're just going to lose.
Yeah. The industry right now is essentially in a position where that's not an option anymore. A $12,000 per loan cost to produce is not an option moving forward. The new era of mortgage won't allow for it. So again, that's why we have to accept it, we have to adapt to it, and then we have to align to it.
I used to talk a lot about, I have these little phrases I use in my life, and I have what I call my 3 C's: cooperation, collaboration, and connection. And my premise is that if you live in a spirit of cooperation, it leads to opportunities for collaboration.
Yeah.
Doesn't always happen, but it can lead to a collaborative opportunity. And if you're a collaborative type person who leads with a spirit of cooperation, it's going to produce connection in meaningful ways.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking off camera a little bit ago about how every level of the food chain is going to have to buy into this collaborative effort to find ways to improve margin by addressing efficiency. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, and let's frame it like this, right? I think the answers tend to always be in the middle. Right? And so again, let's categorically organize this. You have the originator segment, you have the branch managers, and then you have the company leaders, company owners. This is a collaborative effort. It's going to take a team to win on this. It's going to take all parties to share in the responsibilities to lower that cost to produce. For example, if the company owner says, okay, we need to use this tech and really hone in. We can't use all of this tech. We just need to use this tech and then it'll create this efficiency. Here's the result. We need branch managers to align with that. Now, branch managers have to have feedback with that. They have to have buy-in with that. So again, collaboration. Then branch managers have to create their systems and processes. And then the originators, if the originators are harmonious in accepting that and abiding by it, using the right tech, using the process that's ultimately creating these efficiencies, now extrapolate that across the entire organization, that's how we're picking up basis points that create dollars.
Or we remain siloed. I remain fighting for the best interest of myself as a loan originator, or I do the same as a branch manager, or I do the same as a business owner. You know, it was just 6 months ago or so, we took a critical look inside the knowledge coop here, and we talked about what we do well and what we could do better.
Yeah.
And one of the things we recognized that while we have amazingly talented people, we were somewhat siloed in certain areas. We had silos, and maybe the content team was crushing it and making really creative content, doing a great job, but were they interacting with the platform team? The platform team, if you don't know what happens at the coop, they're responsible for making sure the delivery system, the software who our developers write code for, is capable and effective of delivering the amazing content we create. But if we're not collaborating, then we got people doing really great work independently, but if they're not speaking to one another, then we're not necessarily creating a product that's easily delivered by the system that we have, or a system that can support the kind of content we're trying to create. This is no different than what must happen in the mortgage business.
Yeah, and again, it also speaks to the mortgage business by trade is inefficient. And the mortgage industry is very complex. Footnote here, I'm not saying any of this is easy.
Yeah.
It is complex, and we have to rewrite our complexities. We have to probably peel some of that back and maybe let go of some of those complexities.
And realize that recruiting more talent, getting more volume isn't going to solve the problem, because margin compression, to begin your earlier comment, margin compression is here to stay.
Right, and because in the past it was we tried to out-recruit our way through this. Or I remember, and I think you and I shared this, recruiting replaces refis.
Right.
If you remember a statement like that.
Right.
I don't believe that's the case anymore. And by the way, recruiting is a whole other, ball of wax that, is a conversation. So again, the organization has to look internally. And I would always say we have to thoughtfully grow. Now, there's a difference between growth and recruiting. And this is something I really emphasize with my branch managers. We have to have a thoughtful growth plan. Recruiting is just the action within the growth plan. But so much of the mortgage industry is really guerrilla recruiting, banging phones and just trying to get people in there. Now, we always say we don't want the wrong people, we want the right people, but the mortgage industry is taking anybody and they're paying for it. And I get it. However, we can't recruit our way through this and out this. We want thoughtful growth.
Thoughtful growth seems to predicate that we have more than just a "what have you done for me lately" mentality as business owners and branch managers. It has to scale beyond, great month last month, but we're 2 weeks into the new month and you suck. We've got to have a longer term plan for how we're building, how we're structuring our organization, and how we're defining success.
I love that, because the mortgage industry, again, is so built on immediate gratification, month. And if we can take a longer term, now I get it. This is how the revenue, profitability, compensation is all built around that. I'm not arguing that, but I love the longer term eyes on it. And if we're measuring data, if we're scorecarding a certain way, if we're measuring our efficiencies with long-term minded goals, again, we can steer this ship the right way.
It's important that we say at this time too, there's a lot of companies doing this right now.
Yes.
There's a lot of companies who are really, and have been locked in on this for a while now. Yeah. I think the reason we're bringing it up is because there is so much hand-wringing in the industry right now about this market and how long it's lasting. And our message throughout this series is, this is the market you're in. Yeah. This is the market you have. It's going to change. It could get worse. It could get better. But today, this is the market you have. So what are we going to do to thrive and survive in the market that we have, not the one we wish we had?
Yeah, and I love that you said that, because I agree. And I speak to company owners and branch managers every day. And there is so much attention to wanting to do the right thing. I think the challenge becomes, but I don't know how, or I'm afraid if I do this, I'm going to lose my people.
Yes.
And that's upsetting. And so that's really why I'm speaking to, again, everyone within the organization to create this collaborative acceptance within. And if team, and here's something else, especially going back to the recruiting front. If the team agrees that they want to stick together, then the team will win together, because that will foster collaboration, and that will foster, hey, we might all have to make some hard decisions, but it is for the collective good. And going back to the markets are always going to get bad and they're always going to get good.
Yep.
We will, and we are good. There's a lot of people that are thriving right now.
Yes.
Thriving. So, and there's reasons why. So this is not a problem. This is a challenge, and challenges create opportunities.
Go back to your earlier comment, because you talked about the need for collaboration just a moment ago, and if the team will come together, right? Yeah. Well, there's another benefit of the team coming together that is profound and powerful. It makes the team more attractive. Recruiting just got easier.
Yeah.
You don't have to do as much guerrilla recruiting. You don't have to run around and say, look how great we are, because it's pretty evident to the marketplace in the way you're executing, the way people talk about working in your firm or for your firm. Recruiting takes on a less urgent panic. Yeah. I got to win today, because the law of attraction takes place, and you just got a group of people who are dynamic and working together towards a common objective, and it facilitates the recruiting process.
100%. And so, and I love that, because when I work with my branch managers, and I have what I call my experience plan, where I work with branch managers helping become, branch leaders, and as part of that is the growth plan. And I talk about opportunity attraction and magnetizing recruits, and I don't even like calling them recruits, that's just the word.
Right.
But magnetizing opportunity that comes your way. And that's ultimately, and I think if everybody listening thinks about their best growth throughout the industry, it's always probably happened somewhat organically. Right? And I get it. We have to have outbound. We have to have the actions.
Sure.
But when we have a thoughtful growth plan, we know where we want to recruit, who we want to recruit, who our ideal recruits are, what their values and their goals are, and do their values and goals align with your values and goals? So it's not just a transaction. This is a long-term relationship. At least it should be built that way.
Historically, the industry had a fairly widely known reputation for putting butts in seats. I've got 3 empty offices, I need to fill them. And of course you want to fill them with quality people who are like-minded and fit into the culture of your branch, but if you can't get those people today, you hire who you can get, and that doesn't necessarily lead to cooperation, collaboration, and connection.
And it comes out of desperation.
Yep.
And I can say it because I was there.
And we've both probably done it at times.
And absolutely, absolutely. And we've both been under the pressure of recruit or die.
Yeah.
Right. And so.
And we've been under the pressure of, oh crap, I made a bad hiring decision and now I got to live with it until I can figure out how I fix it.
Right.
Can I coach him up or do I have to coach him out?
Right. So I think there's so much, and again, this could be an entire segment in of itself talking about growth plan and what that means. But ultimately, it's really critical. Understand and get to know who you are trying to attract into your branch, why they would come join your branch, why would they come join you as a branch manager, and do you share the same values? Do you share and support each other's goals? And ultimately, this is a foundation, and then we build off of that. But ultimately, if we do, and we have that alignment, we can do great business together.
And it just struck me with you saying that we're in a period of margin compression. We're also in a period of consolidation.
Yeah.
There have been some pretty significant acquisitions and mergers recently. There's probably going to be more.
Absolutely.
There's also, sadly, going to be some companies that don't survive this. That's statistically almost a certainty. One of the things we talked about in one of our episodes of A Lowdown not too long ago was have your powder dry. Know your competition. Not because you should be flighty and looking to change on a moment's notice, but if something changes that's outside of your control, you have no control. The people at Academy Mortgage had no control over whether or not they were going to be sold to Guild. They just were.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that was a bad move. Guild could be a wonderful landing place for a lot of those people. I know people who were at Academy, moved to Guild, and are really happy with the transition. That's great. But know what the competition looks like out there, and are they culturally consistent with who you are? Are they operating in a collaborative way? Do they have control over their processes and efficiencies? You got to know what your options are should something change that's outside of your control.
Well, and also know thyself.
Yeah.
Right? Know what you want. Know what you're contributing.
Yeah.
What you're bringing to the branch, right? This can't just all be take.
Great
right?
point.
It's
Great
give
point.
and take, right? And that goes with everybody from the originator to the branch manager. And again, this collaborative effort.
So neither one of us here are presenting ourselves as gurus. We've made all kinds of mistakes in our leadership roles in the mortgage business, and we recognize that some of the things we're saying are being done really effectively by companies right now.
Yeah.
But we also hear a lot of the hand wringing and a lot of the antipathy about what's happening right now. So we wanted to speak to it, and we're going to continue this conversation. Well, we are back again with Craig Davis, and first I got to say, I love hanging out here with you and talking about this stuff. It's kind of fun. It's almost like Back to the Future, right? We get to go down and relive some of our past experiences. And then, of course, you and your coaching role get to share some of the things that you're dealing with that aren't that much different. Some are radically different, but some aren't that much different from what we dealt with in the past.
Sure.
But what's cool about this is Craig is a friend of the Coop. He's also a friend of mine. And it's fun to just sit in these relaxing chairs, not around some formal desk, and just have a chat. And that's kind of what we're trying to bring to you today. I know that in your coaching business, you've decided to, not decided, but you have organically kind of evolved into a big emphasis on working with branch managers. Not an exclusive emphasis. You work with all kinds of different clients at different levels, but the branch manager role is one you just have a particular affinity for. Explain that a little bit.
Well, absolutely. And for the majority of my career has been with the branch manager, company owners, senior leadership, and originators. And so, really my forte and my specialty is being able to help people succeed on purpose and in their design. And that doesn't mean I'm an originator trainer. What that means is I help people build business in a thoughtful way that's unique to them. And so I'm very much oriented towards branch managers, company leaders, company owners and CEOs, and originators who want to grow a business. And those are my clients, and where I'm building
People
so
who
much.
bought into the idea of intention.
Intention, attention to intention, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
You had some examples of some challenges faced by a couple of branch
Yeah.
managers we chatted about. Share that. I think it's relevant to our conversation.
Yeah, and it's very relevant to our conversation. So, so I'm working with a couple of branch managers who are with an IMB, and they're coming from yesterday when they owned their entire operation, from underwriting, docs, and funding. I mean, they were aggregating, $30 million a month with a large operation, big branch full of originators. Now, that was yesterday. Today, they don't own that operation anymore. The company owns that operation. It's not on their P&L. Well, so as we're going through vision and where they want to grow their business and how to build that thoughtfully, there's some inefficiency that's happening right now. And the reason why is because they are always able to clean it up in the end. Because they own the operation, they had control over closing and funding to be able to put attention where they needed to fund loans faster or whatever the case was. The point is they were able to clean up inefficiency on the front end and create efficiency on the back end. Now, that's all fine. However, they don't have that anymore. So now, through the process, okay, we have to move the efficiencies into the front end, into our control points. And they are concerned about doing that because they're concerned about that being accepted by the originators. They're concerned that adding more to the originator's plate than what they were doing before, mandating these different processes, using the technology, or doing what is necessary to add more heavy lift on the front end to create a lighter lift on the back end.
We talked in our last episode about the necessity for a spirit of collaboration in this new world order that we're living in.
Yeah.
And what you're describing is, in order to meet the requirements of this new world order, you are going to have to modify. It can't be business as we've always done it because that's the way we've done it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have to evolve into the new realities that exist for the originator, for the manager, and for the top of the house.
Yeah, exactly. And so, not to belabor every detail of this, but the point is, I think with so many branch managers and company leaders, I'm going right back to, okay, what is the vision? And the reason I'm going back to what is the vision is because, look, maybe the puck has moved so much in what we're talking about. So what is the vision? And that is really powerful. So I would really emphasize for everybody listening, go back to your vision statement. Where are you trying to go with this? What do you need to do? Look within your organization or your branch, and what are the pillars of your organization that need attention? It could be your operations, it could be your process, it could be your marketing, it could be your growth plan, training and support, retention. And this is what I focus on. This is why I focus on with branch managers and company owners, because I am uniquely fit to help in every one of these silos. And so we break that up. So what is the vision? Where are we going and why? And now how do we go there? So I'm working with them because it's pretty obvious to say, well, sure, let's move the efficiency to the front end. That's an easy thing to hear and to say, but that's hard to do.
It's funny, I'm on a rabbit trail a little bit here, and I hate to have story time with Uncle Kirk, but this is from my past. About 1,000,000 years ago, I was in the printed circuit board business. I worked for some manufacturers and we sold to companies like Tektronix. Tektronix was so leading edge at this time. They were already practicing statistical process controls, lean practices, the things that are now commonplace in places not called the mortgage industry, that have been commonplace, creating efficiencies in organizations. They came to the realization, when you make a printed circuit board, you're creating circuitry in a laminated printed circuit board connected by conduit or conductive matter, and too many organizations that were making these products were getting to the finish line, and then they put them on a bed of nails for electrical continuity testing, and if it tested good, it was acceptable, and if it didn't test, it was thrown out. Basically what they were doing was testing in quality. It goes back to your illustration of we were fixing it at funding, right? Which, God bless them for being conscientious enough to make sure they had a deliverable loan. That's powerful and that's profound because the consequences of not are brutal. But you can't just test in quality by a deliverable loan. You have to build in quality, and other industries have figured this out 15, 20, 30 years ago. And it's time for us in mass, not just for the few companies that have figured it out, but in mass to realize you can't test in quality, you have to build it in.
I love it. And it's a great example because though they were able to do that, and they were very good. Now, they had high quality because I used to manage them at my prior company. But in our current world, that's not an option. So now having to make this shift on the front end and everything that we're talking about, how to do that, that now is actually, it's a challenge, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier. Your challenge is your opportunity, and I will bet you they are going to be better in the long run as a result of this.
Well, because I can't help myself, you'll indulge me one more illustration from that same story. Tektronix was the client, and they were an early adopter in these statistical process controls and lean practices and all that stuff. And they had a meeting every Friday they called core group, and they would ask vendors to come be at that meeting. And in their core group meeting was this huge room with grease boards all the way around the room, and every department was represented by somebody, a lead, a manager, or an operator. Didn't matter, but the department had to be represented. And they went from receiving to final inspection. They went around the room in order of the process of making a printed circuit board and talked about what they were experiencing, what was happening, and if it was necessary, if they got to the plating department and plating said we're having outgassing, we're concerned that maybe the drilling department isn't following their protocols on sharpening their drill bits like they're supposed to, because if you have burrs on those drill bits, you're going to get an uneven surface when you coat it, and it's going to, I know I'm going down a rabbit trail here, but
all metaphorically true.
The point was, if the department in front of you doesn't do their job with a conscientious, thorough thought towards the next step's going to be screwed up, and it's going to affect the entire process. But if everybody buys into, without thin skin, if you can take feedback from the step after you without thin skin and improve your processes, you now create a lean process, an efficient operation.
Yeah, yeah. And it really is fun. I mean, I did this when I took over an operation when I moved to the Bay Area back in 2016, and I completely rewrote our entire operation with that. So I went through this when I took over an operation in the Bay Area years ago, back in 2016, and I went through that exact model of breaking down and looking at every opportunity to trim waste. And by doing that, I was so proud, because the result of that, now this was months of work, months of collaboration, and the result of that was I was able to increase the velocity of loan production by 4 business days without any addition to staff. And that was purely out of process elimination of waste, adhering to the process, using tech the right way, and where everybody thought I couldn't do it was getting all of the branches to abide.
To buy in.
To buy in. And I thought, that's the obstacle? That's not their obstacle. That will not be my obstacle.
We've mystified what we do in this business. I was guilty of this, so I'm not pointing the camera at you. I was guilty of this. We've mystified it when in fact we're just making a widget. Call it whatever you want. We're making a car, we're making a fishing pole, we're making a product, and it has to go through an assembly process. And if we take into account every step of that process with efficiency and excellence and quality criteria for how we do our job, then we get to the finish line faster, velocity, better product, fewer buybacks, less revisits to the criteria of underwriting on that loan. We don't have to go back and forth between sales and underwriting to get polish up that turd, as we often said in the business. That's the, when I hear people talk about how the industry needs to be brought into the current age of thinking, this is what they're talking about. Buy into those operational efficiencies that other industries have embraced years ago, right?
Yeah. And we think, and again, I just want to go back to what you've been saying multiple times, and me as well. A lot of people are doing this very well. I'm not accusing anybody of not doing this well. And I'm not saying this is easy. This is challenging. All I'm saying is the challenge creates opportunity. And what I'm saying is keep looking in the mirror, because I think there's a lot of people, there's a lot of owners and managers that are saying, I know I need to do this. Is it just getting to the point where now I have to do it? Get to it before I have to do it. And I think we're kind of there. Well, and little shifts, again, little shifts that create remarkable results.
We just recently hired a C-suite level product marketing specialist, and he has transformed this company. We had a problem. We were inefficient, especially from a user experience standpoint. If you logged onto our website, it might take 6 or 7 or 8 clicks, hopefully ending you up in the right place to where you could transact business with us. That's too many in a web-based environment, right? So his mission was to understand the user experience, the user interaction, and create a cleaner, more systematic way to get 2 or 3 clicks to the place where we wanted you to engage or choose not to. That's happening. That's now in place. We have grown up as a company. At the end of the day, the Knowledge Coop is a software as a service company. We think of ourselves as a content company because that's what we love doing. We have fun doing. We think we make the best content in the business, and I would argue that we do. But in the delivery of that, we use a software platform. And if we can't help our clients engage in that wonderful content that we create in a simple, meaningful way, then we failed to execute our business model, not because we don't have great content, but because we didn't go to the department that's delivering that content and make sure that the user experience was seamless and easy and only a few clicks instead of 7 or 8 or 9 or 10. It's the same thing.
Yeah. So let's take this into an action. I think for, especially for all parties listening, originators, branch managers, company owners. So number one, okay, what's the vision? Where are we going and why? What's the result we want? What's our desired outcomes? Okay, number two, okay, so how are we going to get there? What are the silos? What are the pillars that need to be addressed to get us there? Again, tech, process, margin compression. What are those elements? Okay, number three, who can help you? This is where a lot of people get trapped, right? The leaders or the managers feel like they have to do it all. You don't. There's a great book called Who, Not How. We know everything just from that title. Who can help you? Because you don't know how. You don't have to know how to do everything. You just need to have the who's. That come out right? Who, not how.
So.
Yeah. So who can help you? And on that team, create your SWAT team. And when you're creating that SWAT team to help you move this, it's a project, move this project forward, there should be a variety of people on the team, just like you were talking about in the efficiency equation. Originators, operations people, leaders, managers, and so on. So everybody has buy-in, feedback, and you're going to learn things that you are not seeing because you're going to see it from different user experiences. And by doing it that way, and this is how I got widespread branch adoption and alignment into a new operation, is because I had branches involved with the creation of this. And then they become your key stakeholders. They will help you sing that song and get buy-in from the rest of the team. And that is how we can move mountains, and it doesn't all have to rest on your shoulders. So we got to break it down.
What a powerful statement, and maybe a profound way to end this part of our conversation. And it goes back to what we discussed earlier. Cooperation, collaboration, connection, working together towards a common objective, setting aside the silos of origination versus branch management versus underwriting versus ownership versus secondary markets or whatever, and realizing that we are all in this together, and everybody's going to have to contribute to the efficiencies, and everybody's going to have to contribute to the solution to the problems. One of my favorite quotes is, "You cannot manage what you do not measure." And everything we've talked about today is a way of creating methodologies to measure how effectively we're pushing our loan through the process, making our widget. And if we do that and we measure, now we have the data from which we can improve our processes, right?
Absolutely. And data can be hard to come by.
Yeah.
We need the data, but again, I'm just going to use the example again when I rewrote that operation. I didn't have the data. The data wasn't there. So I literally wallpapered my entire office with those large Post-it notes. So I'm saying get large Post-it notes, paper the wall, and then get to work. I just rewrote. Okay, what happens when an originator takes an application? Let's start there. And then here's the current system. And now here's our ideal future. So identify the current, now identify the ideal future. And I would say this, set a couple rules, right? One of my rules was, hey guys, no bad ideas, even though some are.
Brainstorming 101.
Yeah. So, so all that stuff. And so and it actually became a fun project.
But it's work.
But it is work. And the other rule was, if it doesn't improve or simplify the end user, we're not going to do it. And now we all want to keep it simple, right? So I will say this, the pathway to simplicity can be immensely complex. So keep going, because you're going to start with a simple answer, and then you're going to start peeling that onion back and start figuring out, well, then this could happen. What if this happens? And what if this happens? Absolutely, you have to do that. That's the process of getting very complex. Don't give up there. Keep going.
Making it simple doesn't necessarily make it easy. Getting to 2 clicks before a client engages on our website from 7 or 8 or 9 wasn't easy. But it's a simple process that we want our user to experience. It's a great point.
That's absolutely. So lean in, put the heavy lift in, because the result will be better.
Great stuff, Craig. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
We've got one more session coming up here next time, and we're going to get into some real life examples of how adapting to change can be profoundly important in a new world order.
Yeah, right on.
Well, welcome back. We're going to try to dive into some real world examples that hopefully illustrate the points we've been trying to make, or at least some of them, as we've had conversation here with Craig Davis from Ascent Experience Coaching and my friend Craig Davis, more than the guy that runs a coaching company or was a former leader in the mortgage biz. He's my buddy, and he's just a great friend of the industry. So let's get into, for the sake of illustration and example, let's talk just briefly about the NAR ruling, not as two people who have crystal balls and know exactly what's going to happen, but let's try to put some perspective on the recent NAR ruling.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And certainly from us in the mortgage side, we're not immune to this, and we've been through this before. In fact, our business has been affected by this, since what, 2008, 2009.
Right.
And I do sympathize with the agents who are going through the shock of this. And that's really what it is. There's a shock to the system right now.
There's a shock or there's denial. I'm seeing both.
Well, the shock leads to the denial,
Maybe so, yeah.
But the point is, it's not, in my mind, it's not really the details of what the NAR settlement is going to become. It's now how am I accepting and aligning and now enacting upon it, right? The reaction might be the shock, but now we got to act upon it. And whatever the result is going to be, the way I look at this is actually, I think, one of the greatest opportunities. Oh my gosh, did I say opportunities? This, I think, is one of the greatest opportunities for originators to truly partner with your realtor partners.
To bring value to them, increasing their leverage point and their opportunity on their end.
Bingo. Bingo. Because on the buyer side, now this has never not been the case. You have to provide, what is your value proposition? We always have to be earning through our value proposition. So what an opportunity for originators and buyer side agents to partner together, because there's so much that the originator can bring to the table with the buyer side agent to help increase that value, to increase their value.
Old adage, the only constant is change, right? Yeah. Change came. Now, we don't even know what that change looks like yet until July, until this ruling is defined. And I would argue even for months, perhaps a year or two beyond the July clarification, we're still not going to know. So if anybody puts you in a room and said, here's exactly how the NAR ruling is going to shake out for buyer side agents or buyer side clients, or for loan officers for that matter, I question that certainty, because we just don't know. I'll harken back to a story that you and I are very well aware of. When everything changed for us in 2008, there was a couple times when one of the heads of compliance from my company would call me and say, hey, Kirk, we need to rein in this area. We need to do this, that, or the other thing. Only we don't really yet know quite what we're supposed to do. And I would throw up my hands and say, well, what am I going to do? And this person on the phone said, I'm sorry, but what CFPB is telling us is that we will clarify through enforcement. And of course, what that means is when you get a fine, you know you broke the rule. We can't really quite tell you what the rule is yet. We're working on that. But when we fine you, you'll know you broke the rule. And I promise you there will be some experience like that for realtors in this NAR ruling, right?
It's black and white with gray all over. So again, let's not get hung up in the details. Let's not get hung up on what it could be. Let's only focus on what I can do.
And what happened in 2008 is an awful lot of people got out of the mortgage industry.
True.
And what happened after that was an awful lot of people who remained had some of the best years of their life all the way through 2021.
It's been a bull run ever since. Well, other than maybe a year and a half ago.
Rough year and a half recently, but still, if you banked, you're okay.
Yeah.
And that's really the point. Adapt. We started this conversation off by talking about adapting. This is the market you're in. If you're a realtor, this is the ruling that came down. We don't quite know with clarity what it's going to mean yet, but it came down. And the thing that has to remain is you have to have a value proposition that makes you desirable for people who want to buy or sell a home.
It goes back to what we were talking about in a prior segment. Are you magnetic? Do you have what I call opportunity attraction? And how do you build opportunity attraction? Well, that certainly goes into how do you handle your business, the mindset, your success mindset, your personal brand, what your deliverables are, how you manage to communicate with your clients. I mean, all these different, arrays create this magnetism, this opportunity attraction. So you're not just showing up and just showing, it's very difficult being a loan officer. It's very difficult being a real estate agent. You earn this.
Every dime.
Every dime. However, the puck moves. And right now the puck is moving. So we have to move to where the puck is going.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. I mean, the rules change in Major League Baseball, the
Yeah.
rules change in the NFL,
Yeah.
and now kickoff returns are radically different. Or offensive players are given a lot more latitude. Defense cannot touch the receiver nearly as much as they used to, or pass interference is going to be called. What do? Do you cry and whine and complain? Do you keep committing penalties, costing your team 15 yards every time? Or do you adapt and figure out how to play effective zone defense or become a master of man-to-man defense? What do you do to adapt to a changing climate? Because it's not just the mortgage industry, it's not just real estate, it's every aspect of life.
And that goes back to what we were talking about in the earlier, content. We were talking about less revenue per loan, margin compression. Well, that's just a result of the fact of all these contributing factors adding up in our current times. The difference being this is going to last. The NAR settlement is a result of something, but this isn't going away. The puck has maybe shifted a little bit. And by the way, I have realtor clients and realtor friends, and when I talk to them and ask them, hey, so what's your opinion about the NAR settlement? I have not gotten one negative comment. Well, we were already kind of doing this. We were already transparent about this. We are already providing these different value elements, in our buyer side transactions. We're not worried about it. In fact, I get a lot of, it's fake news. And I love that.
Interesting.
One of the first agents I talked to, and she's one of my clients, she's like, it's fake news. I love that. And she's killing it. So it just goes back to, if you're getting hung up in the noise, let that be a signal to you that you're getting hung up in the wrong place.
Okay, so this is important, and I think we can wrap on this in this segment that we've done here. There's these 4 or 5 episodes we've tried to put in the can here. Let's talk about mindset.
Okay.
If you're hung up in the noise, let that be a signal to you. Expand on that a little bit.
Focus on what you can control, not on what you cannot control.
Interest rates, I can fix, well, wait.
The market.
Oh.
The NAR settlement. The news. The media, get out of it. If you are really and I am a victim of this. I stopped watching the news a long time ago. I am a victim of market conditions. Well, I've been a mortgage guy for 25 years, right? So we have to let go of, I cannot control the market. We don't make markets, we respond to markets. And that right there is where the opportunity is. So for everybody watching this, everything we've talked about, it's not a good thing, it's not a bad thing, it's just a thing. So let's respond, let's get insightful about it, and let's drive action. Let's focus on our actions, not some ideal future, positive or negative. Now we have a goal, we know where we want to go, but we have to focus our attention and our success into our actions, not the results.
Now, I want to take a risk here of getting a little too woo-woo, but let's get really specific about what a person can do to really make sure that they're facing the beginning of each new day with a mindset that gives them the best possible opportunity to adapt and succeed.
So I'm going to give you guys a link. I have a free, I call it my optimization planner, my ozone planner. It's free for the audience. And that is how I start off every day. I coach towards it. I start off personally every day. My wife starts off with it. It's just a simple 1-page planner. But I start off with your happies and your gratefuls. Right? And it's really important because you're going to want to start off feeling happy and grateful. And then I divide up your day into your proactive zones and your reactive zones. And all I mean by that is, what do you have to do proactively to move your business forward? It could be social media and marketing. It could be cold calling. It could be, whatever that case is, there's proactive elements to your day. So you just create a zone in your day that I'm going to only do this. And then it also gives you time and space to then also manage to your reactives of your day, responding to your day. Okay, I got to chase down this condition. I got to call this person back. I got to, talk to the underwriter.
Got a deal blowing up.
I got deal blown up. Whatever the case is, right? And why that's important is because that is going to give you mental space and clarity and purpose to be able to attack your day proactively as well as responding to it. And then there's 2 other parts of it. Then you have what I call the oxygen zone. Now, I never realized how important this was. And I put on here because identify what you're going to do in your day to give yourself some oxygen. Go into the gym, go for a walk, listen to a podcast, listen to this interview, and drink a glass of water. Just identify those things that gives you oxygen. If you identify it in the front of the day, you will do it. And then this is what's going to really tie it together. At the end of the day, throughout your day, track your wins. And this is really important. Track your little wins. It's not just about the big wins. track your little wins. And why this is so important is because I want you to tie your success into your daily wins, your actions. And that is going to give you a newfound sense of purpose and success. And it's going to allow you to let go of the noise over here and this sort of desirable or ideal future that you're trying to get to. I will be successful when I have this much money in the bank, or I will be successful when rates are at 4.5%, or I will be successful when. We don't want to do that. What we want to do is I am being successful when I make 10 prospecting calls.
And when you do that, what was the first thing you said to do first thing in the morning, the very first
Your
thing?
happies and your gratefuls.
So if you're tracking your success throughout the day,
Yeah.
how much easier is it to wake up tomorrow morning
Bingo.
right there, to celebrate what's happening in your life rather than going, the market, oh, the rates, oh, whatever.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And so that structure will keep you, just surrender to doing that. And that'll keep you plugged in. So if you're in a negative space, this will help you drive your business forward and get you in the right mindset. Because ultimately what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to tie your happiness and your definition of success into your actions, not into this desired future state, right? The rest, it's again, little shifts, it all compounds, it adds up, we're moving our business forward.
Well, this has been fantastic. And I hope what you got out of this last segment was that success is a holistic approach. You can't detach from the very human side of who you are and what you need to feel good about yourself and what you do from the results of the effort you put in your job or your fitness routine or whatever. It's all integrated. Your mental approach, your physical approach, your intellectual approach, it's all interrelated. And I don't want to minimize this last segment by calling it simply soft skills, but it is these soft skills that can contribute so greatly to the success in your hard skills of what you are going to execute on tomorrow when you get into the meat of your day.
Well, it's like I'm sure everyone, very successful people that are miserable.
Yes.
Right. And so again, what is success? So this framework is going to help drive. And again, the point is we want to be happy and we want to be action oriented. And we want to simplify. We want to make this easy. Like my whole purpose in life as a coach, it help you succeed on purpose in your design. That's sort of my purpose statement. But really, my whole purpose in life is to make your job easier, to reduce stress. I'm not trying to add work. I'm trying to reduce it. And I'm very successful at doing that. And so these simple frameworks really help people plug in, surrender to it, and drive business forward thoughtfully, happily. And these simple frameworks really help us drive our business forward thoughtfully, happily, and with success. And I'm proud of being able to help people do that.
I don't know how I could put a better bow on our conversation than that. So I'm just not going to except to say thank you, Craig, for being
pleasure.
here. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll have some information in the credits for you to engage with Craig if you want to, and some other notes from our conversation over the last few episodes. But thank you so much for being here.
I appreciate it, man. It was a good conversation.
Yeah, you as well.
Yeah.